Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategy Podcast, bringing you another great guest. His name is Art Saxby. He's in Houston, Texas. He owns and he's the CEO of a company called Chief Outsiders. And what Chief Outsiders do is they provide marketing professionals, usually VP and up type advice to companies, consultancy, and they do it for a fraction of the cost. So ultimately, it's a fractional marketing type position. They come in, they help you really grow. You could keep them, you can not keep them at that point. Their whole deal is to get you to the next levels of growth that you are looking for in your particular business. Art's got a varied background that's very positive. He's a super nice guy. You know, he was in the defense industry, and then he started working for companies more in the marketing side, you know, like Frito-Lay, Coca-Cola, if I remember correctly, and Kellogg's. And he worked for the Imperial Sugar Company down there in Sugar Land, Texas. He's got a really vast knowledge of marketing. And I think as important, he's got a great knowledge of sales. And they're constantly training their marketing teams on sales as well. And so there's four main components to what we talked about. And I would get a pen out for this one and have some paper. You know, the first thing really is, what is marketing? Really, what is it? You know, because there's a lot of, you know, sometimes contention between marketing and sales and other divisions. But what is it really and why do we need it? Then the second part of this whole thing was he's growing very fast at about 35 to 50% a year over year growth. And so we talk about what does it take actually to be able to grow, I'll say with sanity, and what are the things that you really want to have in place if you want to grow your company, whether it's on his level, you know, which is a, you know, multi-eight-figure company at this point. He had mentioned 30 million. So in the interview, so I'll go with that number at this point. Then the fourth thing is he created something he calls executive as a service, and he fashioned it after the SaaS model. And what I want you all to think, if you don't mind, while you're listening to this, is how could you basically create your own X as a service, right? So there's parts of your business that you can create as just like executive as a service or SaaS, you know, as a, you know, a service type software process. How can you create some of the things that you have and maybe create the same concept where you can then just plug and play certain parts of your offers into somebody's business or life, and you know, they win and you win. And many times that's recurring income, which could be much more stable than just, you know, going out and selling one-offs. The last part is, and I love this subject, is how does the CEO want to be sold to? And as he said, he doesn't want to be sold to, he wants to buy. And he goes through and breaks it down into three components of what he looks for as a CEO, and has been, you know, a chief executive in major, massive companies. So great sales lessons for you. So without further ado, let's go to the interview and let's talk to Mr. Art Saxby. Art, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast, and thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Doug.
So you've got a great company. I love it. It's called Chief Outsiders. It's a consulting firm in Houston, Texas. Well, I could tell people what you do, but why don't you tell people what you do so they'll know the frame for this interview?
So we're a consulting firm in a way where we provide fractional or part-time chief marketing officers. So we work with mid-sized companies who are at a phase in their growth where they really need some extra expertise, not selling the strategy deck, but someone on their leadership team who can help them take to the next level. But for most of these companies, they can't afford to hire an executive level VP of marketing or they may not need that skill set forever. So my folks go in as a part-time member of the CEO staff to help take their vision, build an engine for growth, get it going, get it running as part of their company, and then fade away.
So essentially you get in there and you help them grow through marketing efforts, and they can do it at a fraction of the cost that they would if they brought internal staff.
Absolutely. We have over 100 chief marketing officers full-time on staff. Every one of them has been a vice president of marketing at one or more large operating companies. So when we talk to a prospect, we'll try and figure out which of our people is the right fit for them. It might be the same industry, it might be geography, it might be, they're really great at the thing that company needs. If that company needs to go from selling with people in the street to lead gen, demand gen, we've got people that love to do that. So we'll figure out who's the right person. Then they actually act as if they're on that management team. But since the client's only paying for them 1 to 2 days a week over that 6 to 12 months to implement, they can afford that at a level of talent they never could before.
That's an awesome model. And, I love what you had as an executive as a service. I'm going to come back at that during this interview here. I want to go because, right to the heart of this, because, it's called the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. And a lot of times salespeople, people selling sometimes go, why do I need marketing? I don't need why? So I'd love to delve into, what really is marketing and why do we need it?
I often say it's very, very different by industry, obviously, but in the simple case, the job of sales is to sell what's in stock. The job of marketing is to figure out, where should the company be going? If that's the direction, what's the competitive set? Who's the perfect client? What do they care about? So what products and features should you have in the product, the service? How do you price it? What's the right way to get it to get it into market, the channel? Sometimes it's the lead generation, demand generation, so that you can hand a lead to a client. And then often continuing a level of relationship with the client so that you can get continual referrals. So, the simple thing is if you know exactly what you need, the clients you're going after, what they want, how they want to buy, and you've got it, you probably don't need a whole lot of marketing. But there may be a time when you say, boy, we really think we can move into this segment. But that's different. How do we get there? Or we had a big competitor come in, or there was a change in the marketplace and we've got to go do something different. That's when marketing is really needed.
So what I'm hearing is it's really more like a joint venture between the two, marketing and sales. It's a symbiotic relationship that is a need, really, when it comes down to it.
Yes, yeah. So in many instances, marketing is bringing leads to sales. They're the front end that says, sales, to do your job, we need to hand you great prospects to go after. Sometimes marketing is softening up the market that the salespeople are already after with continued communications and other things. But then there are other times when it's like, okay, where does the company go next? What's the next thing? And that's when marketing really helps, looking at the competitive set, the company's strengths, and saying, here's the new services we need to offer, or the new products, or the new features. And then how does that integrate back into the organization?
That's a really great point. So it's not really what I would call what Peter Drucker really put out there in the media, which is marketing's job is to make sales, superfluous, right? Pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
I've never agreed with that. I always, and I'm hearing you not agree with that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like you look at marketing as a function that is really what sales looks at is we got to do something to acquire an end client.
Right.
And so if we work together, then it's the 1-2 punch versus just, you got one arm tied behind your back type punch.
Exactly.
It's really interesting.
With business is changing, it used to be, marketing would do something and they'd throw it over the wall to sales, and sales would do stuff. Again, different by industry, but there's the changes happen many times, especially in an industrial situation. The client, the prospect, is made up 80% of their mind before they ever allow a salesperson in the door. That client's already researched who the competitors, whose features, whose benefits, whose price, and they said, you know what, I'm going to talk to these 3 clients. So that's when sales gets involved. When the customer says, yes, that's what I want, now I'll let them in the door. Marketing's job is to be there so that they're part of that selection process. It used to be sales could go knock on the door, walk in with a catalog, spend time with an engineer, especially in the last 2 years. It's tough to walk into a factory and sit down with an engineer.
It's almost non-existent if you don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I can hear people now typing away or going to yell at me because I'm going to say this. So salespeople understand that marketing is not your enemy.
Yes.
Right? That they are a valued resource if you use them in the right way. Because I think what happened, well, you said this perfectly, it used to be marketing used to do their job, throw it over the wall, and then hope sales takes and runs with whatever they put forth.
Right.
And sales always was looking at like, I don't need marketing. I got to go out and knock on these doors. I got to get into this. And then marketing's like, well, salespeople, geez, they're just prima donna, type individuals who are just, constantly whining they're not getting enough. And what I think I heard you say, and I'd like you to correct me if I'm incorrect, is the internet is kind of changed all of that, where now 80% of the decision to invite a salesperson in, they already have all of the information prior to, and that's where marketing is invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that percentage will change by industry and situation and time, but absolutely. I talked to a CEO a while ago, and he was grousing about his salespeople. And he said, I just don't think these salespeople know how to buy donuts anymore. It's like, donuts? And he goes, yeah, my day I could buy a box of donuts and I could walk in and I could sit down with any one of my customers. And I knew that this guy, the secretary at this place likes sprinkles, and this guy, and I can walk in and these guys just don't know how to buy donuts. They tell me they can't go sit and see their customers. Well, it's not because the new salespeople don't know about donuts. It's a whole different thing. You can't just walk into even your current customer and sit down and talk about what else they need. So the world has changed because the buyers have changed. The way the buyers make decisions, if you're selling into a Fortune 1000 company and you're selling into their purchasing department, you're probably got a millennial on the other end who may not actually like talking to people. If you're selling into an old line, manufacturing company, yeah, there's someone on the other end who doesn't mind buying people, but it's, you can't get in the plant. They're too busy. There's got to be a way to figure out how do they make their decisions? Where do they go look for the information so that when the client says, I need some of this stuff, wherever they go look, that's where you are. That's what marketing can get you.
That's awesome. And so it really shifts it from interruption sales and marketing to permission-based sales at this point.
Yes. Yep. And frankly, the two have to work together. So we're a marketing organization. I've got over 100 chief marketing officers full-time on staff. We have 2 sales training webinars every month because a marketer that doesn't understand sales, probably a pretty bad marketer. Now, if my people would be naturally inclined to be great salespeople, they probably would have been salespeople by now. They're not. They're marketers. That's the thing they love. But if they love that without understanding what it takes on the other end to take that lead and deal with it, they'd be suboptimal.
Well, and I think it's in reverse too, for salespeople to understand what marketing does and work with the marketing team on what they're hearing in the field to actually help marketing to do their job, and marketing can give the feedback to sales. This is really, I go into companies sometimes and they want to toss me out the window because I'm like, you guys need to work together, right? Really, when it comes down to it, right? Because, marketing's, throwing out their messages. And like you said, they're throwing it over the top of the wall, and we're a fencing company, and the salespeople are trying to go out and sell, but the client's saying, no, I don't want picket fences. I want sword lessons, because that's what marketing generated, right? So it's one of those things that when that congruency's there, what I have found is referrals are so much easier. Cutting the speed to close is so much easier. Just less objections, the whole process. And then when it's handed off to customer service or inside, sales liaisons to farm the account, all of that is congruent, and the client satisfaction rate goes way up.
Yeah. And I think one of the the tricks, the advice I have for the salespeople is if your feedback to marketing is you're sending me lousy leads, that's just moaning.
Right.
Now, if your feedback to marketing is, guys, help me look at what I'm doing, and if you could do this for me, if you could help me with this specifically, I would love to be able to talk to clients that were at this point and help marketing understand what it is you really need to do your job. Then marketing's job is to go back and go, well, if that's the challenge, we better come up with a way. That is productive. That you can get the two organizations working together, But if it's just those guys over there, prima donnas, nobody can do anything with that.
Right. Well, behind every business problem usually is a human issue, right? That's what I've found.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the people and the clients, it'd be a whole lot easier business.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to kind of transition a little bit, because a lot of companies are listening to this. Many of them are mid-size and large-size clients, and some are even smaller clients on kind of hedging on that mid-size revenue that could actually use a service like you are presenting. But I know, a lot of them are fast growing as well. So I know you're extremely fast growing. Your company's growing by 50+% every single year. And so what I'd like to delve into is, how do you deal with the growing pains of an organization? Because you're now a multi-8-figure company, and last conversation you and I had, you said we're probably going to double our size in the next 12 months or so.
That's 2 years, yeah.
Okay, so 50%, let's say it's 50% a year on average. That's still high growth for most companies. And if you're doing it year over year over year over year, it gets to a point where there has to be some growing pains, I suspect. I know we went from 68 million to 368 million in 2 years, and I had a full head of hair prior to that. And so how are you dealing with the growing pain? What do you, I guess the first question would be, do you think the common growing pains that people run into might be in your position?
It's very different along the path, and our longer term growth rate has been about 35%, and last year was over 50%, and this year's so far is well over 50%. And we're a people business, so we can't just run the factory an extra shift on the weekend to make up with that. We can't say, well, we got this software, sell it to 10 people, not 5. We're a people business, so if I'm growing at 50%, I need to be bringing in 30, 40, almost 50% more people next year. I hired 28 chief marketing officers in 2021 in a market where finding people was a challenge. So I'd say the growth challenges kind of happen in phases. The early phase, the most important thing is to have a vision that you can communicate. And I talk about vision casting, help people understand what's the destination. And you get those people bought into the destination, and they go, yeah, let's go there. We can get there. We can work there together. What often happens is the CEO, the founder, is the one who's got the vision, and they're the one who's focused on it, and they can talk about it, and they are the number one salesperson. And there was a time when I was the number one salesperson in my company. I outsold everyone else combined, but I had a vision for $100 million firm. We're not there yet, but but it was like, no, if the vision's $100 million, it won't happen if I am the number one salesperson. This is the art show, that doesn't happen. So I had to figure out, why am I successful selling? What am I doing? How can I clone myself? And in doing that, we provided more sales training and support to some of my people who said, yeah, they were interested. And I did the scariest thing, which was hand off a lead. I knew if I had this one, I could close, but if I don't hand it off to them and let them try and sometimes fail, they'll never get to where I am. So it's a scary phase going through that. I'm the number one salesperson, and I'm going to have somebody else selling. Well, I haven't sold, negotiated a deal in 8 years now, because I was able to develop a sales organization. And in identifying that, we said, why are they successful? And then you can multiply that. So that's one of the big growth challenges.
I love what you said, because I'm going to try to unpack it a little bit here. What I heard is, if you're an army of one, or you're an army of many, but you're the one, The only way out of this is you've got to create some type of system that you can then impart upon others and let them try. And if they fail, you provide them more training on why they failed, but you let them go with a training, you train them.
Support, yeah.
And
they will fail. And the people that I did, I would have brought in more business than they did. But you moved 3 years forward, and it's like, they're way better salesperson than I ever was. They're bringing in way more business than I ever did.
That's always funny to me,
yeah.
Because a lot of times I'm working with mid-sized companies in that space, right? And the bottleneck is the CEO or the founder of the company because of exactly what you just said. They are the best salesperson, at least in their mind at the moment. And they're afraid to let go because they have no feedback system. And they're afraid if I let go, they'll mess up this client, or this client will leave, or we won't get this much new business. And what it really does is it impedes their ability to actually grow the company.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can say the same about operations. If the CEO is the best engineer and they've got to touch everything, that's limiting. If they're the best customer service or the whatever, when you start a company, you are everything. And you are the best at everything, and no one else is ever going to know what you know. You have to make a decision. Is this a lifestyle business? Am I building the art show and it's going to be a great business and I'm going to run it and I'm the guy and I'm the center? Or do I have a vision for this future, this destination that's much, much bigger than I am? Well, it's a lot more exciting. It's easier to get other people engaged in your vision and to be a part of your vision and to help you bring your vision to life if it's a big vision where they can see growth. It's hard to get a whole lot of people who's excited about me. Hey, come work for me because you'll help me.
Right. Yeah. I agree. It's really interesting to me because the vision, when we built that company and we went from up to 300 plus million, the CEO of that company clearly conveyed and articulated that vision on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And we were just like, oh yeah, let's go. Right. Because everybody wants to be on a moving train or, whatever. Yeah. And I mean, that company, even when I left the company, I mean, I had my stock and all that good stuff, but even when I left the company, they went on to build it beyond that and they sold it for $2 billion. And I know the CEO still today, we're friends, and he still conveyed that vision all the way through until the time of sale.
Yes, yes.
And so for those people who are just, maybe they're not at that level where their company's just starting to scale or they want to scale it, but they're not sure. I would press them to take a look at their vision. Are they articulating it in a way and painting the picture in the way, because there's always going to be tough times in building a business.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that vision carries us through is what I have found. And I'd like to, as you and I were kind of joking a little bit, before, it's like business is so simple until you add people. Yeah. And it's like, money out, money in equals something. Yeah. That's business really when it comes down to it.
And if I could just throw out a little structure to think about, if you're thinking about the vision for your company, there's a very simple structure, and it starts out with the destination. What could this company be? And articulate it. What would customers say about it? What would competitors say about it? What would the people working in it? What's this grand vision, this there? Then why would it be good for the company if it got there? Well, if it got there, it'd be good for we would have this and this and this. Second, we have a plan to get there. The plan might not be roughed out, but we have a plan to get there. The fourth one is, what's in it for me? What's in it for you? Imagine how great it'd be if you were part of this and you got to build it because your job. If we got this company over the next thing, we'd be more stable. There wouldn't be layoffs. We got this thing. You'd be running a sales team instead of just being the salesperson. So have that destination and say, here's why that destination would be good. There's a plan to get here, and here's your role. And then say it again and again and again until your people can mimic you perfectly. You haven't said it enough times. You have to say it so many times that they know exactly the words you're going to use. Literally, until they can do it for you, articulate it for you. You haven't done it enough.
So we're drilling the vision in consistently. I remember I was in the military. They used to ask us this almost on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think, when you go through, like I was in the Army, and the first time we did a live fire exercise where machine guns were going off and they were pointed at us, that we would just run and do what they told us to do. And I remember going through at that point going, what am I doing? Right. And I just kept going. Right. Yeah. So it's not brainwashing, but it's, if you're so committed to that outcome, the vision, and we can take Apple, for example. I mean, people, even today, I see heated debates or almost fistfights get in between, Apple or Microsoft.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's one of those things, but it's that vision that people want to be part of that drives them and gives them a greater purpose. And I think it hits a human need, which is called growth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I would say significance too, because if you're growing in a company, you can say, hey, look at our company. Right.
I'm part of this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
My career is going to move forward. Yep.
So this is awesome. I would like to, firstly, we're speaking with Mr. Art Saxby. He owns a company called Chief Outsiders. They're in Houston, Texas. They provide fractional or vice presidents of marketing and above.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, my people are all across the country. So we've got over 100 chief marketing officers full-time on staff, and they're all over the country.
So if folks, those of you who are paying attention, didn't get those 4 questions, write them down. If you did, if you didn't, they're going to be in the transcript. I would take that transcript and highlight those 4 questions. They're invaluable to your growth. All right. You have this thing called executive as a service, and I come from a technology world, so I'm used to SaaS as a service or telecommunications as a service or whatever. What is executive as a service? Because I love the name when I first, was looking at it.
And that was purposeful because I started the company in 2009, and the idea of fractional executives, of people working remotely was, well, it was not the norm. It wasn't even, nobody even heard of it before. But the idea, we were trying to figure out, how do we communicate this to our client in an easy way that they'll remember, that they can put it in their mind and go, oh, that, yeah, that. Well, at the time, SaaS software was really the growing thing. It was kind of the new buzzword. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to own it and keep it in your house. You buy as much as you need, but not all the rest, and just when you need it. You're buying software as a service. You're not buying this chunk and putting it in and buying a machine and having the machine sit over there and have 5 guys whose job is to run the machine. You're buying the access to this service. Well, we're the same way. We're an executive, but you don't have to buy the whole executive. You don't have to hire them. You don't have to put them on the payroll. You don't have to, have the 100% of them. You say, what I need is, for the next couple of months while we're figuring this big thing out, I need like 25, 30% of a person. And then once it's rolling, maybe I only need 10% because he can oversee my people to get this thing done. And you get into it and you go, oh, this is a bigger deal. You know what? There's a big trade show coming up. Why don't we ramp up from 25 to like 35% for this next 2 weeks while we get ready for this big thing, and then we'll bring it down. So you could buy as much as you want, and that level of support can go up or down. It's a service, but the thing you're buying is an executive, not someone selling you a strategy deck, someone who's going to be on your leadership team, helping you lead the company forward.
And so it's expertise. It's really being able to put that, like, it's almost analogous to driving. To me, right? You get on the highway and you need a little more thrust. So you push the pedal down. Well, guess what? You've got that somebody in engineering and sales and operations put all that car together for me so that I can actually go from, 45 to 70 to get onto the highway, let's say. So, and when I need it, I need it. When I don't need it, okay, great. I can back off of that. And it's a wonderful business model. And when I was doing Chet Holmes, when I was VP of sales and training, we used to do something called Take It Virtual. And what we would do is teach how to build a virtual team and bring people in similar to what you were talking about. Back then it was a little bit, I'd say, ahead of its time, right? But we did it. I mean, we had a $27 million-ish company and we had employees all over the world. And now today it's really kind of more mainstream. It's accepted.
Yep.
And so companies now, and by the way, companies listening, it is a heck of a way to increase your profitability because you don't have that high overhead. And if it doesn't work out, well, guess what? You're not losing, you don't have to pay severance. You don't have to pay all these things that would come along with a full-time, in-house employee.
And you can probably get a better level of person because you're buying just the best stuff they do. You're not buying all of the other stuff, As the VP of marketing sitting in the seat, rarely can I say I spent 30% of my time on the key strategic initiatives. Now, as the VP in the seat, I'm going to HR meetings and I've got this budget planning thing. So they're paying for 100% of me and they're getting 10 or 15% of me on those really big stuff. Well, if you're hiring this fractional marketing executive, you're only paying for that big stuff because they're not doing the fire drill stuff.
Right.
And we outsource our bookkeeping. The company called Growth Force, it does a fantastic job. And that's because even at $30 million, it's like, if I tried to have my own in-house accounting staff, I couldn't get a very good accountant because there's no career path. They work with me and we grow a little bit, and I've got one or two people, and then with Growth Force, they've got 40 people, and I've got part of a bookkeeper and part of it this, and they have a career path because they're in a company that focuses on that. They can get a better accountant, and because that accountant's going to be able to learn from everyone around them and move up. So I get a much better quality person, and I didn't have to buy them. I'm just using them when needed.
It's an awesome model. I mean, we only have 4 internal employees here. We have 11 outside people. And the reason that we do it that way is exactly what you said. And it works out great. Okay. I got to ask this question because you're like, you're the only marketing company I've ever talked to that actually regularly trains their people on sales to understand sales as well. And I know a lot of people on this particular podcast they're saying, okay, how do I sell to a guy like Art? Because he's the CEO of a multi-8 figure, and been bigger. And soon I predict in the next X years, you will be $100 million company. So I would like to ask, like, if somebody's selling to you, how do you like to be sold to?
I don't like to be sold to.
Great answer. But
I do like to buy. And most people don't like to be sold to, but they do enjoy buying. Now, there's a big difference. I buy to satisfy my needs. Sometimes they're really important needs. Sometimes it's a little, it's a little different. But when I want to something, I go look for it. So there's 2 parts. If you're trying to sell to me and you say, I tell this type of a service that Art might buy, if Art had that problem, where would a guy like that go look to find the answer? Well, the first thing I would go look is to my trusted advisors. I'm in a Vistage group because I need that Vistage coach. I'd ask the other CEOs in that Vistage group. I'd ask my fractional CFO. I'd ask my CPA. I would go to the trusted advisors first, who I really believe in, who know my business and know me. And if they go, Art, you know what? I got a name for you. That's number 1. Second is, depending on your service, if I say, okay, this isn't something where I would get something, or my network doesn't really have it, where do I go look? Is this the type of thing you would Google? Is this the type of thing I would look for a white paper? Is this the type of thing I would go to a conference? Where would I learn? And then if you can profile me and say he would be buying this type of thing, again, I don't buy things. I'm never going to pay you to do the stuff you do. Never. But I'll pay you a lot of money to solve my problems.
Right. So
talk to me about what I'm facing, Art, are you seeing the business like this? Is this a problem that you've run into? That I can recognize, go, yeah, that's exactly the problem I run into. Versus, can I tell you about my software? Can I tell you about, I can lower your costs. It's costs, yeah, okay, fine. But everyone in the world is going to say they lower costs. Or you lower costs or raise volume. There's only 2 things. But if you can talk to me about my needs, I never believe you can help my company until I first believe you could understand it. So understand me, what problem you would be solving, where I would go look for information, and especially where I would get trusted advice on that information.
That's awesome. I'm gonna bring it back into it and see if I can restate what you just said. Okay.
I couldn't. I made that up.
Well, if those of you watching the video see me look away, you'll see there's a pen in my hand. I always take notes through these things, right? Because I learn too. So go to trust you. In other words, most services on your level being sold are really peer-to-peer referrals when it comes down to it. So that trusted advisor, go to the trusted advisor first. It's always peer-to-peer relationships. So, when I work with consultants, many times they're kind of like, what do you mean? It's like, look, the majority of consulting is sold on peer-to-peer referrals, right? So that's number one. Number two, we as the seller needs to be out into what a gentleman said to me once, be in the public square. You must be out there promoting and providing services. And, his name was Alan Weiss. Alan's a very smart guy. And so, getting the get Google or the white pages or the download the report or whatever, something that's valuable to you, we have to be out in the public square. So go to trusted advisors, be out in the public square. And then you're looking for two things. What I heard was you're looking for a value-based offer, which solves the ROI you're seeking, not only just on the business, but the ROI you're also personally seeking.
Yep.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, because and sometimes the message is ROI. Sometimes it's, I've got a problem and I've got to fix this problem. Now, I know in the back of my mind, if I fix this problem, I'm going to be more profitable. I'm going to do da, 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 da. But at that point, for that issue, don't talk to me about ROI. Talk about, this is the type of problem we can solve. This is the type of problem we see, work with a lot of companies similar. Often we see this, is that the type of thing you're facing? If I think you've solved the problem that before, you're great at solving that problem. Once we get into price and features, we'll figure out if this is a good ROI. But you're not even going to get in the conversation until you're actually addressing something that I need to buy right now.
And so on the personal side, that could be stress reduction or lifting something off you and giving you more time back in your life to get something else done that you want to get done versus having to deal. Maybe it's also, you don't even have to deal with this if somebody could just lift it off your plate.
Yeah, grease the squeaky wheel, get it off my back. That,
Makes a lot of sense. Well, Mr. Art Saxby, I really appreciate you being here. Anything you maybe I should have asked you, but I didn't, you might have said, geez, I was hoping he asked me this question.
No, I've had a good time. I love talking about business. I think if you're a business owner, it's about having a vision that other people will say, I want to be part of it. If you're a salesperson, it's about understanding that customer so well, what keeps them up at night. And if they're up at night, where are they going to go look? And when they go look, be there.
Well said, sir. I appreciate you being on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. If people want to reach out to your company or, get a hold of somebody in the company, go, hey, I need one of those VPs of marketing and that, how would they get a hold of you all?
The website is chiefoutsiders.com, CHIEF outsiders.com.
Excellent. I'll put that into the notes, folks, so you can just, click, point and click and make your way there. And I highly recommend you check it out if you're looking at that type of position for your company. It is definitely the way to go. All right. Thanks again for being here, sir.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, everybody. That was great. I learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot. If you didn't get all the questions, look down into the transcripts here. Write down everything he said. I mean, it was great. I wrote it all down. It was, excellent advice. I love the fact that he trains his marketing team to actually be salespeople because they understand what's going on. And as we discussed, it's got to be ubiquitous, right? Marketing and sales is one tandem, highly functioning unit. It's not separated like it used to be in the old days. And, in the old days, salespeople used to be able to kind of knock on doors and do the things they're doing. You can still do some of that. But today, now marketing more than ever is a needed resource because especially on higher level sales, as Art said, about 80% of people now, before they actually look at a salesperson or talk to a sales team, they're starting to make their minds up based on all of the marketing and positioning that's going on. So as a sales entity selling to higher end CEO sales strategies type clients, what you want to do is make sure you're positioned well in your sales efforts. And this is so critical in marketing. I also love the fact of what he said, when he broke it down, you've got to go to the trusted advisors, or what we call peer-to-peer referral selling, right? That means there are people that he relies upon for advice. So you want to get to those people first. The reason you want to get to those people first is because they will refer you in. They're a trusted advisor of his. The second thing he said, when you're selling to a CEO like himself, is you want to be what we would call be in the public square. You've got to be out there, because here's the deal. They will Google you. They will hit your LinkedIn, but only if they know you. In other words, if they got the trusted advisor in, they're going to go to the easy sources. But for some reason, if he has a challenge, a problem that he's looking to resolve, and no trusted advisor has this, guess what he does next? He goes out and finds information. He might download a white paper. He might download a report. He might, check out a talk that was done or something like that, or ask someone in his network who they would recommend for him to check out, right? So you've got to be in that public square. So that means when people, are looking for you, they're not going to just Google your name, right? You've got to be out there, and you've got to keep pushing content out there. You've got to be out there and being visible, so that when somebody says, like if I mentioned computers today, what kind of computer do you have? You would probably say, I either have a Apple type Mac, one of those, or I have an IBM clone, usually Microsoft, tablet or something like that. Or you have Dell, you have maybe HP, right? So, but there are other companies out there that are actually supporting the same products and services, but you may not be thinking of them because you're not hearing the name. Now, it's a little different than branding, right? But it's close to branding. So what you want to do is just get yourself out there. And in time, what will happen is you will become a recognized entity. And then over time, you become a brand. And that brand is, what are people thinking about you when you're not there, and the promise delivered. All right. Third thing he said was, and I'm quoting, solve my problems in a value-based way, right? So he really is looking for value-based solutions, not just on the professional ROI. In other words, professional ROI is the hard facts that come out of this. You're going to increase, decrease cost of goods. You're going to increase profitability. Those are all important. But a lot of times people on his level and up are looking for, and on his level and down on revenue, they're looking for also, how do I solve my problem here, which translates into a professional ROI. In other words, we talked about, hey, maybe it's less stress. Maybe we get it done. Maybe he doesn't have to deal with it at all, because you could take it off his plate, and therefore he has more time to focus on other priorities. So great episode. I appreciate you being here. If you like these podcasts, please support me by going up and subscribing to this channel. The more subscribers I get, the better exposure we get. The more exposure we get, the more we can do these type of things. As always, if you have a subject matter, send it in to me at doug@businesssuccessfactors.com, or you can hit me up on my LinkedIn profile at Doug Brown 1234, or call our number at 603-595-0303. And if you really like it, subscribe. Please give it a 5-star review. I know it takes a little bit of time to do that, but the more things that happen there, the more this podcast is supported, and I really appreciate it. Finally, if you need somebody like myself to come in there and help you or help your company be at the top 1% of sales globally in your industry, then reach out to me at those numbers. I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Now, go out there, sell something, sell a lot of it, and make a ton of money. All right, to your success. It's Doug Brown signing off with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast.